there's going to be a lot of readouts that will come in the weeks and months ahead. So if you'd like more information about how to participate in that, it's this Thursday at 7 p.m. Email us at info@coastlands.org and let us know that you'd like to get that Zoom link. And that would be really great to have your participation with all of that. And then just in general, there are lots of volunteer opportunities that are available to us right now. You can email that same email address to find out about those different ways that you can serve throughout the week here at the Coastlands. Lastly, we're gonna watch a video now from Pastor Lindsay, and she's going to be talking to us about the Pregnancy Resource Center's Walk for Life. There's some modifications to that this year, so listen carefully to those details. But we're going to go ahead and hear from Lindsay, and then we'll hear from Pastor Evan.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to let you know that the Pregnancy Resource Center's Walk for Life is coming up. And this year it's going to be a virtual walk for life. So each participant is going to walk from wherever they're at or wherever they'd like to for 2 miles or a 3-mile run. And the date this year is September 19th, which is a Saturday. And Evan and I are going to be walking as the representatives for our church. So we would love for you guys to sponsor us because this organization is awesome. We've been supporting them for years. We love what they do to help women and families who find themselves in crisis situations, to provide health care and counseling and so much more. So if you could support us, you can go to prcwalk.org, and also feel free to register yourself and join everyone in this virtual walk. Again, that's September 19th at 10 a.m. And if you want to register, make sure to do that by September 18th at 4 p.m. So we hope that some of you guys get out there too, and we're really looking forward to supporting this wonderful organization. Okay, everyone, I hope you have a great week. Bye.
I'm just kidding. Did I get you? I hope I did a little bit. You were just reaching for the mouse or the keyboard, or like, what is going on with that? Technical difficulties. No, just user error. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning on this frigid Aptos morning here. Oh my gosh, I have a jacket on top of a jacket, and it's still kind of summertime. Such a strange place we live in sometimes. Well, hey, listen, I wanted to reiterate something that Josh had mentioned about this meeting that's coming up on Thursday evening. A couple of things. Number one, this is an all call. We would love everybody who wants to participate. And please feel no pressure, even though it's a brainstorm meeting. We're not going to like require you to have an idea necessarily. If you just kind of want to be in on the conversation and even just listen or hear from other people, that's totally fine. I just want everybody who wants to be able to be a part. And I was chatting with Dave and Lavonna Detter, who are going to be leading this meeting, and they have some really wonderful ideas about how to arrange everything. And I think it's going to be a really fruitful time. I really love the idea that we would come together and pray and think and work really hard to organize ourselves to just try to do good without any expectation for return or anything like that to people. I think that is so what we should be doing as the Church of Jesus Christ, working really hard to figure out, is there anything that we can do to help? Not making the story about us, because this is not about us, but making the story about God and his goodness and how he just wants to reach out to people that he loves. I mean, that's really what this is all about. Right now, it's very much in the context of our community that has experienced tragedy. But the even bigger storyline here is that there is a God who loves the world, and he loved it so much that he sent his son to die for the sake of all of the tragedies that would ever befall the world. I don't say that to undercut the significance of this particular one that we're experiencing right now, but just to say that there is a real big picture thing going on here that is of eternal significance. And we might get to play, just a little part in that, to bring a little bit more of heaven on earth, to enact God's will even in the midst of something that is just so sad. It's just so sad. So I really encourage you to come to this meeting on Thursday. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to hear some of the ideas that come out of the meeting. So please do join that. Also to that end, I wanted to mention something that I noticed even about myself, and I say even because I am involved in a lot of conversations with our operational leadership here at the church, thinking through how we're going to help the folks who are camping here on campus, and just kind of everything that we're doing, talking with the county, interacting with other churches, just all the things that are going on. I'm in a lot of those conversations. And despite the fact that I'm in a lot of those conversations, I have noticed this tendency that I have that I would describe as subconscious. I almost said unconscious, but I don't think I mean that. Subconscious, where this big disruptive thing has happened, and we're kind of all on high alert, and we're very heightened in our senses. But then there's this subconscious drifting back that I am experiencing in my own life, trying to get back to whatever normal has been for 2020, basically pre-fire normal. And again, it's not something that I'm trying to do necessarily. I'm not having an inner dialogue that says, oh man, this is really difficult being on such high alert. I'd really like to go back to not having that. That's not something I'm actively thinking per se. But I'm just noticing that this, now that the smoke has receded a bit and there's not an immediate threat to, the majority of Santa Cruz County, there's just kind of been this, okay, back to normal then. And I wanted to mention that, not because that is particularly evil, but because we are surrounded by people who do not get that luxury. They don't get the luxury of just kind of going back to normal without smoke, because their home is affected, their workplace is affected, maybe their kid's school is affected. And I want to remember that. I don't want to even accidentally become callous to the realities of the hardship of the people going on around me. I want to be sensitive to their plight. So that kind of feeds into this meeting on Thursday, the immediate kind of, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? That is kind of coming down a bit. But let's not grow weary in doing good, like that scripture says. But let's press in and see if there's any more contribution that we can make to comfort people, help them in whatever way possible. So again, I hope that makes sense. I was even reflecting on how it just kind of seems to be human nature, that we want to be in a comfortable, known zone, and how much of that circumstantial life arrangement feeds into how good or normal I feel. And then when I'm kind of out of that zone, out of that little pocket of normalcy, I subconsciously want to return back to that pocket of normalcy, whatever that means, whatever that would mean for your life. But even COVID-19, the shelter in place, we are sort of being prevented from living in that normal pocket of life that we had enjoyed for many, many years. And while there's a difficulty associated with not being able to live in that normal, I want to suggest to you that God can get at things in your life and in my life when we are not so comfortable in that pocket of normal. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that it's no big deal. But I am saying there can be profound access that the Holy Spirit has to places in your life when it's not so perfectly covered by normal and comfortable circumstance. I know I've shared this quite a few times now to our church body, but I want to share it again, that there was this moment I had some years ago when God kind of showed me the sum total of all of the prayers that I was praying to him. And he basically showed me that if I answered all of these prayers, you would not need me. And I hadn't really thought about that. I wasn't thinking, God, please do this so that I won't need you anymore. That certainly was not in my mind. But he showed me that, man, if he did everything that I wanted him to do, I wouldn't need him anymore. And he kind of brought me through this process where I realized it is not such a bad position to be in to need God. But sometimes because of the discomfort of all that goes along with being in a place of need, I want to revert back to that place where I have at least less need, less felt need, I suppose. But it's not so bad to need God. And I think we shouldn't be so hasty to want to get out of a situation where we know that we desperately need him. So let's help those who are in need, and let's allow ourselves to be helped by God as we also are in a place of need. Let's not rush so quickly to normal. All right. Well, this morning, what I would like to do is finish out our epic Bible study in the book of Mark. Epic in length, at least. And here we are in chapter 16, where Mark recounts the immediate aftermath of Jesus' resurrection. So we have covered everything of Jesus' birth and his life, his ministry, his suffering, his death. And now we're at the point where he was raised from the dead, the account of the people who encountered him, and the things that he said immediately after that. This probably won't come as a surprise to you if you've been following along closely, but Mark's account of the resurrection is brief. It's right to the point. It is just kind of like, okay, he was raised from the dead, he talked to some people, he sent us out, and then that was that. It's a pretty short chapter, all said and done here. He doesn't really belabor the point at all, and I appreciate that about Mark. But I want to extract some observations that I've made about this chapter that I think are meant to be defining for us who believe in Jesus, for us who have accepted his gift of salvation. The things in this chapter are meant to be defining characteristics of our lives post-Jesus. But before we get into the details of this chapter, I do want to take a moment to just ask you to reflect on all of the details that you can remember about Jesus' life. Just take a moment and think about all of the things that Jesus did when he came here on earth. The way that he humbly entered into the world, defying all the expectations of everything of the way that people thought that he would enter in. And he made it clear from the get-go that he was interested not in domination, but he was interested in redeeming relationships between God the Father and his people. He touched people's lives in a way that nobody had been able to ever in the course of human history. The kinds of things that he did defied every precedent that had ever been set before. Healing people of diseases, casting out the demonic, spiritually oppressed people, treating the impoverished and the rich alike, challenging, loving, teaching, moved with compassion, with great strength, having a clear vision of what God the Father had sent him to do, and the discipline to continue doing that despite people leaving him, despite people hating him, despite people literally beating him. He still moved forward in love. As it says in the book of Hebrews, for the joy set before him, he did all of these things. And that joy was the promise of you and me getting to be with him, getting to be with the Father. The way that he lived his life isn't just supposed to be a marvel for us who read about it, and we look at him and we say, wow, oh my goodness, look at all the things that he did. Look at the way that he did this. Look at the way that he did that. Although we do marvel at what he did, but it's not supposed to just stay in that place of awe. It also was designed to be an example of what we could then expect our lives to be when we linked up with him. By accepting the forgiveness that was afforded to us by his death on the cross, we now understand that just like he was raised from the dead, so our life would experience this incredible step function from where it was before to where it is after accepting that forgiveness. And then the kinds of things that we would fill our lives with after accepting him into our hearts would be the kinds of things that he showed us by the pattern, the way that he lived here on earth. And therein, I think, is one of the most profound and uncomfortable truths in the scripture. That I have been invited by the Son of God to do the very same kinds of things that the Son of God himself did while he was on earth. The reason why I say that's profound is because I think we can all agree that laying your hands on somebody to heal them and seeing them be healed is an incredible thing. That him encountering spiritually oppressed people who society had totally given up on. And remember that man who was living in the graves? You know, the people around him, they tried to help. And they recognized that he was so tortured by what was going on inside of him, they didn't know what to do. He was even hurting himself, and so they put chains on him. And they thought, well, just at least can we help you not hurt yourself? Well, he got out of those chains, and he kept hurting himself, and he was living in the graveyard, and Jesus went right to that place, the very epicenter of that man's oppression, and he delivered him from that torture. It's profound to imagine that you and I have been invited not just to experience that kind of work in our lives, that your oppression, your disease, your difficulty are things that God absolutely in his kindness and love would want to touch on in your life. But that also God would want to use me to be an instrument of that very same kind of thing. I found that most believers, unfortunately, that I've met, for one reason or another, excuse themselves out of that whole realm. And that's just not the way the story is written. Yes, we can just receive his salvation. That is our prerogative. But there is so much more. There is so much more. And I have tried as best I could to show you throughout the entire gospel account of how hard Jesus worked to make his work accessible for people just like you and me. That's why he chose the disciples as incredible examples of the fumbling mess that humankind is. No offense, guys, sorry about that. But he chose these disciples and all of the ups and downs that they made, all the mistakes that they made, all of the confusion they had. They didn't get it. They didn't understand. He told them plainly they still didn't understand, kind of humans. And he used them to do these mighty things. That is a part of the gospel story. It is a part of the good news. It isn't just that Jesus came to save you so that you could live in heaven forever with the Father. That is obviously a huge part of the gospel message. But another part of the gospel message, another part of the good news is he so loves you that he has figured out a way to invite you into that place of significance, not famous as if the glory would be yours or mine, but significance in the sense where you can change the life of another. And in that way, you can be so Christ-like, because moved by love for this other person, you would be so moved as to even lay down your life for them, just like Jesus did. He even said there's no greater love that exists, but the love that would compel a person to lay down his life for his friends. That is the life that we have been invited into. So really think about it. Think about the things that Jesus did and realize those are the things that we are now called into. I said that truth was profound. I also said it was uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable because I think if we're all honest, we're like, sorry, what? But how? Because the distance between where I am and where I would need to be in order to do those kinds of things is like nearly infinite. As we would say in physics, semi-infinite. That means it starts one place and then goes on infinity one direction. Not the other direction, that would be truly infinite. Well, in all directions would be infinite, in all dimensions. Okay. In n-dimensional space, it would go off in infinity along all the axes. Sorry, I got distracted by math. That's fun. The distance between where I am and where I would need to be in order to do these things is infinite. But friends, like, I think that sense of like, what? I don't actually think we're ever supposed to depart from being in that place. I think that is supposed to be our permanent location until we go to heaven, where this work is not necessary because it will all have been taken care of, and then we're just there and all we have to do is worship and eat, as far as I can tell. But I think we're supposed to stay there because it keeps us in that humble place, recognizing I don't have in and of myself what would be required in order to do the kind of thing in my friend's life that would actually compel them to be saved. I don't have what it takes. Well, that brings us here to Mark chapter 16. Mark chapter 16. This is the chapter of going. The chapter of going. It starts off by talking about a few people, ladies who came to the tomb, and they had come intending to anoint the body of Jesus, and they had this conundrum on their way there. They're like, how are we going to get in? Because there's this big stone in front of it, and I mean, they didn't have a solution before they went there. They just went there, not really knowing what they were going to do about the massive stone, which I find kind of intriguing. Anyway, they show up, and you might know the story, but the stone was rolled away. And they go inside, and there was an angel that was there at the tomb, and he says, the one that you are seeking is no longer here. If you've read the story many times, just resist the temptation to be like, yeah, I know. I've read the story, I know the deal. He's not there, he's alive, okay. I just put yourself in their shoes. Everything of what you know about the way that life works means that this man, Jesus, is dead, and he's still dead, and he's in there. And then all of a sudden, that isn't true. Massive step change. Massive, like, reorientation of like, wait, what? What? And the angel says, go tell other people about what it is that you have experienced. Go tell them what you have seen, basically, that he's not there. It's the first instruction, I think, where after Jesus' death, someone is told to go somewhere and tell those people they're going to about something incredible that God has done. This is the beginning of our go ministry. Why do you think I like saying, let's go? Let's go. Go, tell his disciples and Peter that he, meaning Jesus, is going before you into Galilee, and there you will see him just as he said to you. So the very first time that a group of people is told to go and tell and minister is immediately accompanied by the information that Jesus himself is also going before you to the same location. So I'm going to send you somewhere. I'm going to ask you to do something that's a little bit wild, which is to say, Jesus is not dead. Now again, for a lot of us, been believers for a long time, we have accepted this. We believe it. We're like, yes, he rose from the dead. But just think about how wild that news would be, right? Now then think about you being in this position where you're going to tell someone he's not dead. I know you saw him die, but I'm telling you he's not dead. Would that make you feel a little nervous at all? Like, are they going to believe me? Are they going to think I'm crazy? Like, what are they going to think? What are they going to do? I don't know. This is kind of big news. They are reassured, though, that where they are going, Jesus is going as well. I'm going to come back to that point. Well, they went out. It even says they fled. So they were really, excited about this new ministry opportunity. So they fled from the tomb, trembling with astonishment. It had gripped them, and they went right to the disciples. So they came and they reported those things to the disciples while everybody was mourning and weeping, understandably. Now listen to this, verse 11. When they heard that he was alive, meaning when the disciples heard that he was alive, and that they had been seen by Mary Magdalene, they refused to believe it. I find this really beautifully ironic. That the people that God was going to send out as the primary emissaries of his gospel, of which the most important fact is that he is alive, he is not dead, they did not believe it at first when they were told. I mean, talk about failing the entrance exam to your new job position. Like, is Jesus alive or dead, yes or no? You're going to need to know the answer to this in order to be effective out there. And they did not believe him on the front end. They didn't believe. They didn't believe her. Well, after that, he appeared to them, and then, of course, they believed after seeing him. The point I want to make to you is even the disciples needed a little bit more than just being told Jesus is alive to believe that he was alive, and then their lives were radically changed after they had believed. This is a really important point, I think. Okay. So he appeared to them, verse 14. He reproached them for their unbelief. Can you imagine how little eye contact was in that moment, Oh my gosh, why didn't you believe? Okay. So they reproached him because they had not believed those who had seen him after they had risen. I really believe, all joking aside, I believe that this was like a profound moment for them to recognize that this is the way that it is going to work. This is one of the mechanisms by which God was going to do ministry, that one human was going to tell another human about something that God has done, and that is supposed to produce something profound in that second human, even if the second person hasn't experienced exactly what the first person has experienced. Does that make sense? It was massively confusing. Did I just like Yoda Star Wars you right now? Believe you will after done I am. Okay. Person A experiences something from God, tells person B, even though person B has not experienced exactly what person A has experienced, person B has something done in them because they heard an account of what God has done. And through that pipe, God's ministry, his gospel, his message was meant to go to the entire world. Because of course, even now, 2,000 years later, none of us were there physically when Jesus died, right? And so it kind of has to be that way, that these things that people experienced and witnessed were passed down over time even to us who now get to believe, and something happens in us when we believe what we are told about the truth of who God is and what he has done. And then after I have believed that, yes, Lord, I believe, then God does stuff in my own life. Now I am no longer person B, I am now person A. And then I get the profound opportunity to go to person C. Ooh, we are getting very physicsy, aren't we? I get to go to a third person and say, this is what God has done. This is the truth of who he is. And as that person believes, something profound happens in them. And then they get the opportunity to be person A. He appears to them, and this is what he says, verse 15. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. He who has believed and has been baptized will be saved, but he who has disbelieved will be condemned. The very clear and succinct message of what Jesus said after he was resurrected, he encounters everybody again. Their minds are totally blown. What? He says, go. Go. A defining characteristic of a believer, I believe, is intended to be a going and a telling of the things that Jesus has done. Now, before you get all crazy extreme and think, okay, I got to go to a different part of the world, remember the very first going that is recorded here after Jesus was alive was this group of ladies to a group of guys they already knew. They already had a relationship with them. They went locally, but they still went and they still told. They still said, he's alive. He's not dead. So your going might not mean that you have to get a new job, move to a new city, become a missionary per se. But your going might be even going to people you already know, but with a new message. It might be going to a new people, also with a new message. But the idea is that we go and we are telling the things that God has done in my life. Be a person A, not just a person B or a person C. That is the invitation. Jesus says, you really want to get into my kingdom? Oh, you really want to do these things that I showed you is possible to do to change the world around you, to change a life? What is required is that you would go and that you would tell. Go and tell. What's that old song? Go tell it on the mountain. Yeah, okay, the song's a little incomplete though. The mountain, the valley, the desert, everywhere, the city, the country. Go everywhere and tell the things that God has done. Sometimes we can overcomplicate this, can't we? Okay, but how do I tell? And oh my gosh, and how do I know? And all this stuff. And oh, what if it doesn't work out? What if I get embarrassed? What if this? What if that? What's the right way? How do I do it? What's the right person? What's the right time? The right way? God. But now do you understand why it's so important that Jesus said, I'm going to send you places that you've never been before, to people you've never been to before. But here's what I want to tell you. I'm going before you. I'm going to be with you always. I'm going to try to say something as kindly as I possibly can, okay? If you don't find that promise incredibly comforting, that might want to bring you pause in your life to reconsider whether you are going anywhere where you need God. Because if Jesus was like, behold, I will be with you every time you brush your teeth. Don't worry, I'm going to be with you. Every stroke of the brush on the molar, I will be with you. You know, I think we'd be like, okay. I mean, okay, but that's not really moving the needle for me because I don't need some sort of supernatural empowerment to brush my teeth. Sometimes my kids try to convince me that they do. This is so hard. But we don't need that. When God calls us into places where we know that we need him, that's what it's supposed to feel like. That's why it's meaningful that he said, I'm going to go with you. And if your response to Jesus saying, I'm going to be with you is kind of like, okay, whatever, fine. It might mean that you are not right now ultimately where God is wanting to send you. I don't want to make you feel condemned or feel really badly, but I do want to challenge you that if it's just, I don't know, lukewarm, okay, could take it or leave it. It might mean that there are more places, further distances that God wants to send you. Now he says this as well in verse 17. These signs will accompany those who have believed. In my name, they will cast out demons. They will speak with new tongues. They will pick up serpents. I'm going to touch on that. If they drink any deadly poison, it will not hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. All right. I want to tell you something that I realized about this whole passage here. I mean, those are incredible things, right? Cast out demons, lay your hands on the sick, they get healed. Drink deadly poison and you don't get hurt. Pick up serpents, you don't get bit. What in the world is that all about? I'm going to explain that to you, I hope, today. But like zooming out from that just for a second, I want to point out to you that this is said very obviously in the context of Jesus saying, go to places and you're going to be doing things that's going to be kind of nerve-wracking for you, and you're going to be telling people who maybe, awkward moment, like you disciples, did not believe it at first glance. You get that? The disciples did not believe the ladies when they said, Jesus is alive. They didn't believe him. They needed something else to believe him. So Jesus is saying, as I send you out and you're going to go and tell people, guess what? I'm also going to do signs. Another translation of that is attesting miracles. That means that there are going to be miraculous things that happen that are not really intended to be like a self-sustaining or a self-contained miracle like unto itself. Like the point is only that a demon is cast out or that a disease is healed. That's not what this kind of miracle is. This kind of miracle is meant to help people believe the truth of who God is and what Jesus has done. So when he says, go, and I'm going to do signs and miracles through you, the point of those miracles is to help the people that they're going to believe the truth of what is being said. That is the point of those things. So then, anytime an attempt is made to do anything on this list, or anytime something on this list actually happens, that isn't ultimately, as its highest goal, trying to help people believe in the one who loves them, then something has been lost in translation. I'm not trying to be cryptic, but I am afraid I am accidentally being cryptic. What I mean is, if everybody looks at the miracle of what is happening, let's say somebody gets healed from being sick, and the only thing that they're impressed by is the person who prayed for them to get healed, then the point of all of that has been missed. It's not the person who prayed for the person to be healed, that they would be glorified and we're all impressed with them. Oh my goodness, how they can heal people. It's amazing. The point is supposed to be, I see that, and now because I've seen that, I now believe in Jesus. That's the point of that. It's an attesting miracle. I don't know if you've ever thought about this yourself or had a discussion with somebody. This was a huge topic when I was in college. Why aren't there more miracles in the United States? You know, we read about these things happening in other countries, incredible things happening, just like on this list, but man, it seems like not as many things here in the United States. I don't know that I have a complete answer for that, but I do know after studying this that these miracles only happen accompanying a person who is going. So if we're not going, we won't really see this stuff happen, not in this way. And if I am just staying in that spot of receiving, certainly I am not going to see things like this be done through me. It requires that I get out of that spot. Remember what I was talking about? Out of that spot of comfortable normalcy, and I go somewhere to do something that by its very nature is new and uncomfortable. And that's why Jesus is like, don't worry, I'm going to be with you. Okay, oh dear God, okay, you're going to be with me. But what's going to happen when I get there? How do I know if it's going to work? What if this? What if that? And he says, don't worry. Yes, there's going to be a ton of challenges in front of you. Oh my goodness, the opposition you're going to experience is going to be great, but you won't be harmed. And as far as people believing you or not believing you, I'm going to do signs and miracles through you that person needs to give them the opportunity to really believe in what it is that I am saying. I don't know what that miracle is for that specific person or that specific circumstance, but that's not really up to me. My big job is to go. That's basically it. And Jesus is like, I'm going to take care of, he's going to do the heavy lift here, okay? He's really going to be the one to do the heavy lifting. We don't need to be clever or smart or even really that experienced. We just need to be faithful to the call to go and be willing to be used by him. So what's up with the serpents? Oh my gosh, have you ever wondered that? What is up with the serpents? Oh my gosh. I know we got these guys up in the mountains of Appalachia actually handling serpents, but most people aren't tempted to grab a snake because in Jesus' name I'm not going to get bit. Most sane people are like, probably not something I'm going to do, right? So why did he mention that? I've always wondered it. And in fact, you probably can't see this, but I've got a big old question mark right there in the zoom in. Enhance. Oh, wait, okay, we don't have that capability. You ever love on cop shows, they have like some sort of like, CCD camera? Can you enhance that? And then the guy types. Okay, who's typing to enhance images, by the way? Like it's mostly point, anyway. Type, enhance it, zoom in. Okay, now run your algorithm. Like, oh, I've just happened to work on this algorithm that's gonna help me make this blurry image clear as day. Enhance. There's a question mark here next to this part of my Bible because I'm like, what is up with the serpents? What is up with that? Well, I think I have a partial answer for you. So the first thing I have a question is this a literal statement? Is he literally mean the living creatures, snakes? That we can handle snakes, the animal, and we'll be okay? Or is this a reference to the spiritual realm? And it was a genuine question that I had. Well, in my study, I think my answer is both probably, but probably more spiritual than physical. And I'll tell you why. In Luke chapter 10, you don't have to flip there if well, you can if you want to. Anyway, Luke chapter 10, Jesus sends out the disciples for a little bit of a trial ministry run, okay? Go cast out demons, go heal people, come back and tell me about it. They come back and they're stoked out of their mind. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it worked. I can't believe it worked. And they said, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. Jesus' response is, I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning. So he responds to their statement about demons, and he responds talking about Satan. And then the next verse is, behold, I have given you authority to tread upon serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall injure you. Does that sound familiar? I mean, that sounds very much like the sentiment that he's expressing in Mark chapter 16 when he says, you will be able to handle these things. And in fact, the Greek word for handle there is actually kind of like cast off. It's kind of like you grab it and throw it out, like a hot coal on something, and like grab and throw, that kind of a thing. That's the action, grab and throw. It's not like grab and handle and I don't know why you would dance with a serpent, but that's what I imagine in my mind's eye. So you'll tread upon serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. Now, he's very clearly talking about the spiritual realm in this context. I mean, it would be super strange if the disciples are like, the demons are subject to us. He's like, yes, also, those physical animals, you can walk on those. Okay, now back to the spiritual realm. Like, that's very strange. And then he even says, okay, but let's not rejoice that the spirits are subject to you. Again, reiterating, he's talking about the spiritual realm. Do not rejoice that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are recorded in heaven. So I think that principle of, no matter what the answer is, no matter if it's physical or it's spiritual, we're not really supposed to focus so much on the fact that we can be divinely protected by God from harm as we go. Remember, that's the context here. It's not just kind of chilling, but as we go, we're not supposed to focus so much on the fact that we're like this invincible, bravado kind of Christianity. we're supposed to always be in that humble place. Remember, semi-infinite. Where I am and where I should be, it's just like an infinite, chasm. Here I am, Lord, just thank you so much that my name is in the book. That's where we're supposed to live. All right. So Jesus uses the word serpent here in a very obviously spiritual context. So that's why I think it's mostly a spiritual statement as opposed to a physical statement. Now, the astute Bible studiers among us will point out that Paul the Apostle did have an actual encounter with the snake, where he was shipwrecked after being imprisoned for preaching the gospel and then experiencing shipwreck. Even when he told the guys, please don't go that way because we're going to get shipwrecked, but they did it anyway, and they went there, and it was a spectacular failure on part of all this stuff, and he saved all these people. The soldiers were going to kill the prisoners because they didn't want them to escape, but Paul's like, let's not do that. It's an incredible, wild ministry, prison ship ministry. That's not one that I commonly hear these days. And so he goes out there shipwrecked. They end up on an island, and the natives know about this, local snake variety that if it bites you, like you're cooked, like that is it. Nice knowing you, but you're done for. And Paul, and this is also kind of funny. He was gathering sticks. He was serving. How unfair, right? He's serving, and he gets bitten by a snake. I think I said snake. Bitten by a snake. While he was serving, helping other people. He just saved all their lives. He got bit by a snake. Paul had so many opportunities to feel sorry for himself. Oh my goodness. Imprisoned wrongly, shipwrecked, nobody's listening to him. He saved a bunch of lives, and now he's the guy picking up sticks, High, mighty, exalted Paul, one of the most incredible orators ever in the course of human history, and he's just picking up sticks. Gets bit by a snake while he's doing that. Anyway, he's got a bundle of sticks in his arms, and he gets bit by a snake, and he does that. He does the cast-off routine, okay? It comes to you. He doesn't, dance with it for a little while. He just throws it off, okay? Well, people saw him. They're like, oh, my gosh, you're cooked. But nothing happened to him. Nothing happened to him. He physically was bitten by a snake, and yet he was protected by God. But here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. The people around him were so astonished by this fact that it opened them up to receive the gospel. So in all of this list that we read here in Mark chapter 16, the point of the miracles is to attest to the truth of the gospel. It is not meant to make people impressed with us. I don't even really think they're meant to be things that are like we're supposed to aspire to. This isn't some sort of exhaustive list. Like Jesus is like, all right, listen, I'm willing to do these 7 things for you and no more. It's not an exhaustive list. It's like a laundry list of I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. Basically, what the people need in order to believe that what you are saying is true, I'm going to do those things. And it probably is going to be different every single time. So to focus on snake handling or poison drinking as some sort of spectacle to make people wow, what is that? Is totally missing the point. Who is being glorified? Who is being glorified? Who is I understand now how much God loves me because somebody is doing that. It just looks like foolishness because it is foolishness if you grab a deadly snake on purpose and you are handling it. We can imagine all sorts of other things that Christians have done in the name of Christian bravado that I think is just straight up foolishness. It does not advance the gospel. It erodes our testimony in the world. Yes, we are supposed to be different than the world. We are supposed to draw contrast, of course. I'm not talking about making ourselves so blended with the world that you can't tell any difference. But we are supposed to speak to people in a way that they can understand. And if all that they can tell is that what we are doing is foolishness, and there's no understanding given, there's no love that is shared between people, there's no relationship, then I think the testimony of Jesus Christ is eroded, it's not established. So we just need to be really careful that we're not so focused on what God has given us, I'm invincible. I think that's a big mistake. I think we're supposed to stay in that spot of my name's in the book. And I'm super nervous about doing what God has asked me to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because I believe he's going to show up. I think that underlying belief that like, well, if I just do it the Christian way, it's all going to work out, is a version of like a perversion of this. And Lindsay and I were chatting about this a little bit, and she mentioned something very wise, I thought, that there are many people who feel very disappointed and disillusioned, I think, because I thought it was going to work out, and I did it the Christian way, but it didn't work out. This statement of Jesus saying, I'm going to be with you, is not a guarantee that it is all going to work out in the way that we want. It's not even a guarantee that every time we lay our hands on people, they're going to be healed. It's not a guarantee that every time we try to cast out a demon that it will happen. That's not what this is. This is an invitation to intimacy. And that despite whatever happens, he is going to be with us. That disappointment and disillusionment can be a sign that, how do I say this? Well, let me just say it positively. The ultimate goal here is that you and I would be close to the Father. That's the highest goal. A life that has totally worked out the right way, the Christian way, is not actually the goal. I mean, that's what heaven is for. That's what heaven is reserved for. As far as setting expectations goes, God was pretty clear. Like, it's going to be a mess. I'm creating a new place. Where you are now is not going to actually be heaven on earth. Now, pray that God's will would be done here as it is in heaven. But that's totally different than actually establishing a heaven on earth. We are going to be broken. We are going to be disappointed. We are going to be perplexed, struck down, but not destroyed, not totally laid waste. And I think it is in that place, that tension between I am still a person who has great need, even though I've been given these promises of how Jesus is going to show up. I know that I still need him. Even though I wanted things to work out that way and they didn't, I'm not going to let that become what defines my relationship with God, because my relationship with him is not meant to be circumstantial. In all of this, though, the point is that we get up and go. I want to ask you, I really ask you, guys, we're here at the end of the gospel account. How are you living out that instruction to go and to tell? Hallmark of that, I think, is that you're motivated by love and you kind of feel nervous. I really do. I really think that's it. I don't think you ever kind of stop being nervous on some level. I'm nervous. I'm nervous every time I come and talk to this black box that I think maybe people are watching through. I get nervous every time God's prompted me to pray for someone. I get nervous every time God's prompted me to send a text message to someone. I'm just like, gosh, what if it doesn't work out? What if this is, blah, 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 blah. And I have to stop and remember, Jesus is with me. And so I'm just going to be obedient. Go. Be a part of his kingdom. And let's see these things happen on earth. Picture of his will, just as it is in heaven, as we anticipate going there one day. I want to take a moment to ask if there's anybody here watching this who has not started their go journey with God yet. You haven't accepted his forgiveness, because that's really the first thing. That is the first thing. That is the gateway through which the rest of this new life